Okay, YouTubers, this is Old John. I'm going to do a video today on the Antichrist and possible candidates, as I call it on my website, which I'll show you in a minute, and possible Antichrists in the world today, which I will show you on my web page in a minute. But first I want to start off with a chart done by the late Salem Kerben, who was a Christian and also a Muslim. And he died, I can't remember, but maybe 10 years ago. I really enjoyed him. He was the first one to come out with, to my knowledge, a Bible totally dedicated to prophecy and especially Revelation. And the book was just full of insights and charts and so forth. And this is one page he devoted to the comparison between the coming of Christ, but also who would precede him, the Antichrist. So let's go through some of these before we get into who possible Antichrist candidates are today. First, in John 6:38, Christ came from above, whereas the Antichrist in Revelation 11:7, he ascends from the pit. Christ came in his Father's name, John 5:43, whereas the Antichrist comes in his own name, John 5:43. Also, Christ humbled himself, Philippians 2:6, whereas the Antichrist exalts himself, 2 Thessalonians 2:4. Christ was despised, Isaiah 53 and Luke 23. The Antichrist will be admired, Revelation 13:3 and 4. Christ was exalted, Philippians 2:9. Antichrist will be cast down to hell, Isaiah 14:15 and Revelation 19:20. Christ to do his Father's will, John 6:38, and the Antichrist to do his own will, Daniel 11:36. Christ came to save, Luke 19:10, and Antichrist comes to destroy, Daniel 8:24. Christ is the good shepherd, John 10, Antichrist the idol, evil shepherd, Zechariah 11. I won't go into all the details on these because I don't want to take too much time. Christ is the true vine, John 15. Antichrist is the vine of the earth, Revelation 14. Christ is the truth, John 14. Antichrist is the lie, 2 Thessalonians 2:11. Christ is the Holy One, Mark 1:24. Antichrist is the lawless one, 2 Thessalonians 2:8. Christ is a man of sorrows, Isaiah 53. Antichrist is the man of sin, 2 Thessalonians 2:3. Christ is the Son of God, Luke 1:35. Antichrist is the son of perdition, 2 Thessalonians. Christ is the mystery of godliness, is God manifest in the flesh, and Antichrist, the mystery of iniquity, will be Satan manifest in the flesh, 2 Thessalonians 2:7. Okay, so now that we know some of the traits of the future Antichrist, let's go into my webpage, which is walterjohn.tripod.com/Matthew24.htm. And I'll have a link in the bottom. But it's entitled, this portion is entitled False Christs, Maitreya and Others. Matthew 24:5 and Revelation 6:2 tell us that for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. There's all kind of data here, but let's try to skim down to, and I want to highlight some of the portions. A few years ago, I heard that there were over 2,000 individuals in Los Angeles alone who claimed to be the Christ, and I have links to that, and also Wikipedia if you're interested in more. This man, well, I should say, this individual is claimed to be the savior for all, and it's Maitreya. And we've never seen this person in the flesh, to my knowledge. There have been a lot of supposed captured pictures of him, but he's sponsored by Benjamin Krim. This guy is forecasting to appear for many years, and he was supposedly born in 1972 in Britain, and he was going to deny his deity until he was accepted. So this is a possible Antichrist figure if he ever shows up. This individual is interesting, Raj Patel. He's really a big globalist, and you can click on this video and see more detail if you want. But he has certain qualities, I think, of the future Antichrist. Other possibilities, Walid Shabbat claims that Islam could be the Antichrist. He also points out that the Antichrist possibly could come from Turkey instead of the Roman Empire, which is the more common accepted version in today's Christianity. So here are the lists that I came up with, and they're linked so you can click on them and go directly to the specific detail on them. This individual, Ronald Weiland, actually claimed to be one of the Antichrists and God's final witness. If you're interested in him, he's kind of faded from the scene for the time being. Harold Camping, he was big for a while. Of course, he's one of these individuals always predicting the rapture. He predicted October 21st, 2011. Now, to get on to possible other versions, Donald John Trump, very interesting individual. And just realize, I'm not saying any of these are definitively the Antichrist. I'm just saying they have characteristics of the possible future Antichrist. He's now the president. I'm doing this the end of September in 2018. He's been the president for almost 2 years now. He's a charismatic individual in his own right, and he is intelligent. He graduated from Wharton School of University Business, which is one of the top business schools in the U.S. Curiously, there are a lot of other individuals who are very successful in the world who have also graduated from Wharton. Real quickly, a few examples. Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, some of these names you may recognize and I don't. Stephen Cohen, John Scully, Walter Annenberg of the Annenberg School, William Wrigley Jr. II, and the CEOs of Google, Apple, LinkedIn, CBS, General Electric, Boeing, Pfizer, Comcast, Oracle, DHL, UPS, Pepsi, Time, Inc., BlackRock, Johnson & Johnson, UBS AG, Wrigley Company, and Tesco. So he has a lot of company in these former graduates. Besides being those who think he's the Antichrist, there are those who've come out and said, no, he's not. One of those is Mark Fox, and here are some shots from his website, and he has a video, if you're interested in watching it, why he thinks he's not. Of course, one big thing is pointed out that his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, lives in a building that has 666 on it. Also, Trump, when he won the delegate count, 666, which is a number identified with the Antichrist in the Bible, was his delegate count. There are others. Brother Key who definitely thinks he is, and there are lots of things here that he points out. Comes in peacefully, obtains power by flatteries. You'll honor the God of fortresses, which with gold, silver, precious stones, and pleasant things. He supposedly loves gold in all of his buildings. He ran as a nationalist. Willpower is inscribed on his Mar-a-Lago, however, so it's debatable whether he's really a nationalist. He prefers East European women. 2 of his 3 wives have been Eastern European. Revelation 13 says that they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, who is unlike to the beast, who is able to make war with him. Trump now is obviously the commander-in-chief of the strongest military in the world. There are a lot of things to go through here, so you'll need to really come to my site to get more detail. His family is of Syrian and Roman descent. His father's from Germany, where Hitler obviously came from. I'm looking through here. He has supposedly 3 sixes on his family crest. If you're interested in looking at that. Trump's being worshipped and even called Messiah by some. The Sanhedrin and Temple movement issue silver half shekel with images of Trump and Cyrus. Cyrus was a king, popular in ancient times. He rebuilt the temple. Trump may do that. He has moved the temple to Jerusalem, and there are rumors that he may let the Jews rebuild their temple there. There's even a coin with he and Cyrus on it. Now the Antichrist will go into a rebuilt temple and show himself as God. So watch out for that. There are more individuals who go into more detail. David Montague, and have links for that. The Daily News even listed him as possible Antichrist. They don't know if they were doing this tongue-in-cheek or not. He'll show no regard for the desire of women, and some interpret this to mean he will be a homosexual. I don't think this is the case, but it could also mean he'll be unusually disrespectful towards women. There are those who claim that this is the way Trump is. Curiously, his father had the word Christ in his middle name, Frederick Christ Trump Sr., and his mom's name started with Mary. So you have connections there between Christ and Mary, which make for interesting discussion. There again, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is really working on Mideast peace, which some say will be what the Antichrist will put together, and he'll confirm a covenant that's shown in Daniel 9:24, where he will make a peace treaty between the Jews, Israel, and the rest of the world, especially the Mideast. Okay, let's move on, and I'll go some of these others more quickly probably. Mohammed bin Salman, who's the current Saudi Arabian prince. He's really courting the West, and he's even starting to give women some rights, which is unusual. He was born on a Jewish Sabbath and a full moon, so he's 33 years of age, I think, at this time, which is what Christ was when he was crucified. Some say that the Antichrist may be 33, but that's very, very debatable. He's creating a city in Saudi Arabia, which is going to be very interesting. Neom, it's called. He's really critical of the Palestinians and wants them to do a peace treaty with Trump and Israel, which is very unique for Middle Eastern individuals. Okay, moving on. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who's the head of ISIS, who was gravely wounded. Some think he could be, if he would get the power now, his power is waning now, so he would have to have a miracle to come back in power, but some say he's a possible Antichrist candidate. Here's an image of the ISIS people on horses, which is curious because in Ezekiel 38:4 it says that future leader will be on horses when they attack Israel. They had a lot of holdings at one time, but now they've been reduced, so they're again, unless they revive, which, you know, could be an analogy for if they would revive, being wounded. There is a passage that seems to indicate Antichrist will be wounded in the head and will come back to life, but some say that's allegorical and it could be just losing power and then coming back, like the Roman Empire has kind of come back through the European Union. Moving on, Erdogan of Turkey wants to reestablish the caliphate, and then his former president, before he became president, Abdullah Gül, are very interesting individuals. Of course, Turkey is where the New Testament was taught by Paul, several cities there. It also had the seat of Satan. It was called Pergamos, and Hitler was really interested in that and supposedly had the throne there of Satan taken to Berlin. But anyway, Erdogan he's a Sufi Muslim, which is kind of a mystic side of the Muslims, and he's really becoming powerful. He has next to us one of the strongest navies and armies in the world, and next to Russia, I guess you'd say. So we have to watch out for him. There are passages in the Bible saying the king of the north may be in that area, and he will be headed up by the Antichrist. He has a person he accuses of trying to undermine him all the time, Muhammad Fatullah Gulen, who is has his own area in Pennsylvania, and he does try to interfere in Turkish politics. So we throw him in here, who knows? So he'd be another Turkish individual. Tony Blair, who's a big globalist, who's not in the news really anymore, but he one time really had a lot of influence, and he's probably still behind the scenes trying to do the global agenda. Sami Isaac, this guy, he's not claimed to be God, but one of two witnesses spoken of Revelation, and I don't think he's much of a candidate, but he definitely is a false Christ, I guess you would call him. Osama bin Laden, who's supposedly dead, some people say he's really not, but you know, I'm going to keep him in here because one of the possible outcomes of the Antichrist is he will come back to life. I don't think it's likely, but we'll keep him in here. Benjamin Netanyahu, who is educated in the United States, speaks great English. He's an Israeli Jew. He's very powerful. Of course, he heads up the state of Israel. Now, he's in trouble at the moment, but he's very influential, very charismatic. A lot of information on him, so you'll have to come to my website, to my Matthew 24 website. John Kerry, who curiously was kind of out of spotlight for a while, but now it's come back in, trying to undermine us in Iran, keep him then interested in working with us in case Trump is replaced by a Democrat in 2020. It's interesting too, his initials are JFK, like President Kennedy. He ran for president at one time, of course. He supposedly found out he's Jewish, and he's a real good Catholic, but he supposedly has some Jewish heritage. Some people say the Antichrist will be Jewish, others say no, but he will obviously be accepted by the Jews. Bashar al-Assad, who's over Syria, he's a candidate. He's very worldly, American, educated, and curiously very good friends of John Kerry, who's visited him many times. He has quite a bit of power. Now it seems to be waning now, but he's still in power and can't be gotten rid of for some reason. Does he have help from Satan? The Antichrist will start out not being indwelt by Satan, according to the Bible, for 3.5 years, but then he will be indwelt by Satan and then really become powerful. Here's Pope Francis, if you're into Catholicism being the Antichrist system, and possibly a Pope being the Antichrist. This guy's very worldly, very knowledgeable. He's a Jesuit. Some people say Jesuits are really globalists and intent on taking over the world. Here's an interesting video about the final Pope that will be just before Christ returns during trials and tribulations the last 7 years in biblical history. You might be interested in, if you're interested in this individual, watch that video. Moving on. There's a lot of information about the Catholic Church and things they've done over the years. How they lost power at one time, but now are back, which there again could be the Antichrist having a wound and then coming back to life, some individuals would say. Karl von Habsburg is an interesting individual. He comes from the Habsburg line, which his father was Otto von Habsburg, and the Habsburgs really have a lot of power in Europe, and there's a lot of information about their influence still in the world if you're interested in him. Prince Charles of Wales, he's a very powerful man, globalist, very environmentalist. He has a lot of power. He's still working behind the scenes in the world. Juan Carlos, he comes from a line of kings, and supposedly one of his king ancestors was the king of Jerusalem. Romano Prati, he was former president of the European Commission. He may still be, I'm not sure, but he's a very interesting individual. Law degrees. Silvio Berlusconi, Italian prime minister. He has a lot of media background, which Trump also has, which may be important for a future Antichrist to know how to control the media or use the media to his benefit. He's Italy's richest man. A lot of these individuals are very wealthy, which probably will be necessary. King Abdullah, he's American educated, and I think his wife is possibly American, but he's a very interesting individual. It's right there. Jordan is right there next to Israel, and he has a lot of interaction with Israel and help with Israel. So these are the main figures I can think of right now. So if you want to know more about these individuals, and give me comments if you think they're possible candidates. I'm not saying any of these are, but we need to keep them in mind. So this is Old John signing off.